Oh, some people are scared of death, and so they pretend to be religious. That's a very interesting uh, thing that we can certainly explore because while my fear of death certainly was a huge psychological catalyst in studying theology, um, it isn't somehow like the basis for my belief. Um, though using the word pretending is very interesting because after being a Christian for 20 years, right, 23 years, there are times I have these passing feelings that sweep over me that there isn't a God and all of this is me just pretending. You know, I feel that sometimes, but I mean, from within the context of Catholic tradition, that all kinds of things will pass my mind. I'm sure demons want nothing more than for me to become an apostate and to abandon God and to live a hedonistic lifestyle. So yeah, those things are going to sweep over us at times, But it is interesting though to think about, you know, um, in terms of our genuineness and what ultimately drives us, because sometimes the strongest emotions that I've experienced throughout my life were provoked by a philosophy I now reject that I assumed to be true, which was the permanent extinction of my consciousness, right? The eternal loss of awareness. And as such, um, the way that I look at that is, yeah, I had those ideas. Those ideas were very scary to me. It provoked very strong emotion. But it wasn't reality that I was afraid of. It was an interpretation of reality that I have absorbed from various sources very early on in life when I was just beginning, where reason was just dawning, and taking shape. And so to be fair to myself, to be able to say, okay, these were some of the strongest emotions that have been provoked. But it's not, but I was able to draw a distinction between reality and the interpretation of reality I had as an 8-year-old. And, can I really put a lot of stock in that? Like somehow as an 8-year-old, I just intuited that, this was going to be, you know, my eternal end, without any other philosophical considerations. No, I was a product of things that I had seen and heard, and I grew up in a more secular home that very seldom spoke of God. So it would make a lot of sense that I absorbed these ideas that I just took for granted. But this is true of, like, well, why did I enter the Church of the Nazarene when I was 18? Well, because my best friend was Nazarene and I was going to church with them, and that's the context in which I found Christ and became aware of Christian theology and began studying, theistic philosophy. And so, I mean, we constantly have to ask ourselves, why did I have these feelings? Why did I have these thoughts? And, you know, what does it really mean to genuinely have the conviction of um, believing in God and living as if He exists? Because I've experienced days when I was a Christian, since I've become a Christian, where I look back in that day and I didn't pray. I just gave into comforts and sin, and still went to bed without praying. And it's like, wow, I like took I took a day off from God and lived like a heathen for a day. I totally didn't live as if God existed. Um, you know, and I'm like, wow, does that mean all the other times I'm just pretending? It's certainly something. Now, is it true that at the core of my being, I would love for there to be stronger certainty, because I have a tendency to be anxious and to fear and to be skeptical, and that attitude may be helpful in asking intelligent questions and subjecting my own thoughts to scrutiny. Um, but at the same time, it also leaves me with underlying, lingering, pervasive feelings of uncertainty that can be very damaging to my day-to-day living. You know, but would I say that I am therefore just because I'm not in the beatific vision this very moment where my intellect finds its fulfillment and beholding the good, the true, and the beautiful itself, where in said moment I will not experience any uncertainties whatsoever. I mean, if I were to use the term absolute certainty for something, that would be that would be the case. But I wouldn't want to say that, well, because I do not at this moment behold the beatific vision and have that absolute certainty, that there does not exist any measure of reasonable certainty that I can have that's forward looking to that fulfillment. Um, and so I should not be surprised that I experience some uncertainties in my life, because I'm not in the beatific vision right now. And as such, I can have other thoughts and feelings. In fact, because I'm not in the beatific vision, I should not expect there to be that kind of certainty here and now. Which raises the question, what degree of certainty can we have? And so, for me, I've been quite satisfied these many years as a Catholic that reason can demonstrate the existence of God and many of his attributes, and can help me study the historicity of Christ, the reliability of New Testament documents, looking at church history and seeing how the church understood itself, and apostolic succession of the bishops, and baptismal regeneration, and all the such. I feel I have a pretty strong degree of certainty, deeply rooted in historical documents and orthodox interpretations of said documents, and I've been at peace a lot more now than I have in the past. So passing feelings of uncertainty, or feeling that I might just pretend because I'm afraid of death, would be such an it would be a gross simplification of some people's journeys who may have experienced fear of death, may still have a fear of death. I haven't done it before, It reminds me of that scene in Wolverine where that guy who controls all the electricity in the carnival, I'm not afraid of death, and Beast is like, well, how do you know? You've never done it before, And of course he was doing it to strike fear in him right before he killed him, but which is just goes to show how sadistic he is, right? They were framing it that way to give you some more character development, although they pretty much had already kind of framed him as sadistic early in the film. But